Hello everybody, so I'm inspired to share with you today. I recently put up a Facebook post, and it was a picture of a whole bunch of cars in traffic, bumper to bumper. It was like the freeway with a lot of traffic, and there was a quote that read, normal is getting dressed in clothes that you buy for work and driving through traffic in a car you are still paying for. In order to get to the job, you need to pay for the clothes and the car and the house you leave vacant all day so you can afford to live in it. So the quote is really bringing to the awareness the ego's thought system and kind of bringing into awareness the rat race and how it's basically become the norm, and the insanity of how the rat race has become the norm. And so the question that's asked is, then what do you do? And so I don't claim to have the answer to what do you do, but that's not going to stop me from sharing some thoughts. And the reason why I say I don't claim to have the answers to what do you do is because on a deep level, the answer is really not going to come in specifics. It's not going to come in a process. It's not going to come in do this, do that, and things will get better. Do this, do that, and things will get better is actually part of the problem. In fact, if we ask ourselves why we're in a rat race we don't want to be in, the answer is probably because we've been at some point told that that is what you do to be happy. In other words, we've been told that if we go to school, work hard, get married, have kids, buy a house and a nice car, we would be happy. That's what we were told to do to find happiness. And in buying into that thought system, we've cornered ourselves and we've realized that that's not true. So to tell somebody that I know what to do would be repeating, in many ways, the same mistake. The teaching of spirituality, or the teachings of spirituality or of truth, have nothing to do with doings in the world. That doesn't make doings in the world wrong, and it doesn't mean that inevitably we won't do anything. Doing does happen. But what it's really pointing to is something within that has the answer for which we're searching. So if there was something to do, I would first say, let's celebrate the fact that we have awareness of this insane thinking. There's celebration, because in this awareness of insane thinking, or with the awareness of insane thinking, is the opportunity to inquire and to ask questions so that we can understand the thoughts for which result in a situation that we find ourselves in that we don't want to be in. So if we're in the rat race, then we ask ourselves, what is it that we believe? What is it that we hold so dear? Where are we placing our investments? What do we value that would keep us in an insane way of living? What is it that we believe? Course in Miracles says that all behavior stems from thinking. So if we're in the rat race, if we're participating in this game, and we don't want to be in this game, then it may be helpful to ask, what are my thoughts? What's there? What's lurking in the mind? And for me, in my experience, because I have my memory of being in the rat race, is something that, as I look back at, I seem to be reminded of the comfort of the body a lot in my experience. And this may not be the experience for everybody, but I remember it being very important to have hot, heated seats and leather seats in my car and a nice car to look good, to frame this body, this face. I had to look good in a nice car. And not that there's anything wrong with those things. But when the investment is there and I believe happiness is coming from those things, then I set myself up for this chase, which is really what the rat race is about. It's about a chase. So I set myself up for the chase when I believe my happiness is going to come from the comfort of the body. That includes the nice house that I have to live in. That includes the clothes that I have to wear and look good in. Which, if I take it even deeper, all really stems from a sense of lack or a sense of unworthiness, for which I sought in these things that made me look good, a sense of validation. Now, I feel compelled to say it again. It doesn't mean that wanting to look good is wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with nice clothes. There's nothing wrong with going to the gym, wearing makeup at all. Those things are fine if that's what's happening. But when we seek to find ourselves in it, when we seek to find happiness in it, then we find ourselves seemingly doing things we don't want to do, like sitting in traffic to get to a job, to pay for clothes and a car and a home that we're never in. We see ourselves doing things that don't make sense when we believe we're going to find our happiness in those things that we're trying to keep. So the question is, what do you do? So with this awareness, we simply ask questions. What are my beliefs? What do I believe? In my case, the tool of A Course in Miracles was very helpful in the sense that the Course was leading me back to my true identity. In every spirituality, well, most spiritual teachings lead us back to this idea of who we are, whether it's this idea of the Son of God, whether it's this idea of presence or awareness. We are coming back into a definitionless identity. And the Course would teach us that we've forgotten this identity, for which is whole and complete, and believing ourselves to be something else which is separate, we buy into a thought system for which we need to seek and find happiness, and we believe it's going to come around the corner. So in this self-inquiry, we're really questioning everything that we believe, and we are willing to be wrong about everything that we thought. And in truth, being extensions of God, being in truth whole, being in truth completely abundant in every way possible, being all of that, when we inquire for that, we are shown that. But we first have to inquire. We first have to be aware. That's why it's such a gift and such a joy when we have an awareness of the thought system that's insane. We can laugh at it. We don't take it too seriously. We can laugh at it. And we can find appreciation for it. All things work for good. So even being in the rat race is somehow going to serve the mind's unwinding. It's going to serve the mind's ability to free itself. So there's celebration in the awareness of that. And in the inquiry will be shown, because that's now where we're redirecting our attention. So as we withdraw attention from this seeking and this getting and this chase, as we withdraw the attention from there, and we bring our attention to within, call it silence, call it the Holy Spirit, call it definitionless awareness, whatever. The word is just a symbol to where these spiritual teachings point. As we bring our attention to where these spiritual teachings point, then we are shown what's true about our identity. So we're no longer seeing ourselves as these separate entities trying to make a way in the world, trying to make a way to comfort the body. Because we no longer see ourselves as bodies, we're no longer searching for happiness through our bodies. Again, it doesn't mean we give up some of our preferences and comforts. This is not about, the Course would say, not about hurling us out of the world, but it's just about being honest and looking at it. so that we can come into a deeper recognition or realization of who we are. And what we will find is that the solution to what to do is never really in the specifics of doing anything at all. The solution to our problem is always going to be in the correction of perception, the perception of ourselves. From the ego's point of view, from the ego's thought system, we see ourselves as separate individuals trying to make our way through a world, which isn't always so friendly. And the world experience is always happening to us. That is the way the ego sees it. But the miracle is really a shift from seeing it from the ego's perspective to seeing it from an inclusive and wholeness, a perspective of wholeness, which is spirit, where we do see all things work for good. And we can't and won't feel trapped, because in being shown what we truly are, we're also free to be who we are. So if that means making different decisions, like exiting the rat race, or if that means we're guided to do something, we will do so, not out of fear, not out of desperation, and not avoid it either because of fear or desperation, but simply being ourselves and acting out of inspiration and love. So what to do is really about self-inquiry. It's about self-inquiry and discovering or allowing ourselves to be shown what the next steps are. Really honoring whatever the call of the heart is. Sometimes we have a call in our heart, but we ignore the call of our heart because we're so caught up in how to be in this world and the things we need to do in this world and what we think is going to make us happy. We're so caught up in this automatic way of operating in the world that we ignore the call or what's trying to make itself known. We ignore really what the heart is inspired to do because we're afraid. Too dangerous. We're afraid too much loss. I'm not advocating that anybody needs to get out of the rat race. I'm not advocating that anybody needs to do anything at all. All I'm saying is, or all I'm trying to allow for is allow for the answer to be shown when we ask the question, what do we do? When we want to get out of the rat race or anything else for that matter, what do we do? The answer is really coming back to what's within. And what we'll find is because we are love, because that's what's true, only love is real, when we come into within or we begin to self-inquiry, we can't help but find the love. We can't help but come into an experience of love because we're answering the call of the heart. We're answering the call of love with love. It's like the whole is bringing us back to the truth of our identity. And that sounds very abstract, I know. It sounds very abstract. But I also trust that something within hears this call. Something within knows what I'm saying as truth and true. And the simple answer to the question, then what to do, is really go within. Stop, look, and listen. Do what you love.